If you aren't doing fantasy football mock drafts on June 28th of 2023, you are an absolute square and you don't love fantasy football. Totally joking, of course. Welcome into another episode of the Fantasy Football Fellas podcast. I am Lucas Wenzel, and as always, I am joined by Cameron Lawrence and Tyler Plath. They will get to speak much earlier than 30 to 40 minutes into this episode. When we don't have guests on, that's what happens. No, if you aren't subscribed to the YouTube channel already and you're watching over on YouTube, make sure you do that and turn those notifications on. We are dropping videos every single day, short form videos, 60-second videos, and we're doing tiered rankings right now. So if you missed that, Cameron threw out his top 24 rankings from our Fellas Draft Guide, which you can get at fellasdraftguide.com. Free if you use promo code Fellas and Underdog Fantasy. He dropped that earlier this week on our YouTube channel. And if you're listening to the pod over on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, we're grateful for your support over there. Make sure you subscribe to the podcast. Even leave us a nice little review. That helps us out tremendously, so more people can witness everything that we have to offer, the league-winning advice that we have for the fantasy football community. So we are incredibly grateful for your support. You're here for a mock draft, though. You're not here to listen to me give promotions and introduce Cameron and Tyler. So let's dive in to our official second mock draft of this offseason. All right, after all that fancy camera editing work here, we're going to dive into mock draft 2.0 this offseason from the Fantasy Football Fellas. We're going to do this live. 12 round, 12 person full PPR mock draft. Cam is at the 102. Tyler is at the 105. And I'm sitting down at the 109. I decided to take a journey this episode and see how much I really want to hate myself. That might actually be the worst spot to draft from this year. After I've done a mock draft or two from there, that legit might be the worst spot. We'll see how my team turns out, though. I'm not going to piss and moan about it because I haven't even drafted my team for this episode yet. I might actually draft an all-star team with these two in the draft now, but we'll see. We will see. We won't keep the people waiting, though. Let's dive into mock draft 2.0. At the 101 goes Travis Kelce.
Oh,
this is why I hate sleeper bots. You want to restart?
Restart this.
Remove player. Justin Jefferson.
Better.
I mean, okay. Can we just take a second to pause, though? Because I think there are people out there who would make the argument that Kelce goes 101.
Yes.
Like, I think there is a world where Kelce does that. Like, I've actually been in quite a few mocks, like where sleeper bots are drafting, and Travis Kelce is the first player off the board. Like, that's not just an anomaly. Like, that's happened to me probably 3-4 times at this point. And I think there are people who would be willing to go to battle for Travis Kelce to be the 101.
Yeah, no, definitely. I think it's been all over our comments too of people like Kelce 101. And we're just like, well, I mean, I can see it, but I wouldn't do it.
So maybe we should have kept it. But for the sake of the episode, for Cameron not just getting a freebie at the 102, Justin Jefferson is the first player off the board. Cameron, with your pick at 102 here, are you going to look Travis Kelce or are you looking elsewhere?
So I was actually a little concerned when Kelce went because there's only two players I want here, and it's Jefferson or McCaffrey, and I don't want to make the decision. I wanted the sleeper bot to make it for me, but then they just didn't make it at all. So I'm going to take Christian McCaffrey here. He's my best running back. I have him and Jefferson kind of in a tier of their own right now. So first two picks, it comes down to either of those, and obviously with Jefferson gone, I go McCaffrey.
Yeah, you're getting one of the two best players at their position for fantasy football, according to your rankings. Mm-hmm. And Travis Kelce did go off the board next at 103. Jamar Chase at the 104. Tyler, do you know? This is a super interesting spot to have to make a decision because I mean, the top three players on Sleeper's big board right now, I could see you taking any of them there, and it really forces you into a tough decision. So who are you thinking here at the 105?
Part of me wants to just have a bit of fun and not take any of those three and see what happens. And we mock for this kind of reason. But
who are you going?
Can't. I'm good. I'm going Eckler here at 5. I thought about going Bijan just to have some fun with it, but no, Eckler we all know the success that Eckler has had. And sorry, I'm going to stop my analysis and say we need to restart this again because Cooper Kupp is not falling to the 109. Letting Lucas off the hook here.
This is ridiculous. This is ridiculous.
Let me off the hook. Tyler did go Eckler. Again, he's going to compete with Christian McCaffrey for the top running back spot this year. Bijan Robinson is the other name who I think will. He went off the board to team 6. Tyreek Hill at the 107. Jonathan Taylor at the 108. This is a no-brainer Cooper Kupp for me. Look, he was on pace to still be the overall wide receiver 1 last year. He was on an absolutely insane pace last year. He averaged more fantasy points per game than Justin Jefferson, or he averaged 0.1 less fantasy points per game than Justin Jefferson did last year. So you know what? If he's going to fall to me at the 107, I will gladly take him there. Stephon Diggs, Saquon Barkley, CeeDee Lamb, and AJ Brown at the turn. Patrick Mahomes, Garrett Wilson. YOLO, we're going 0 RB. Devontae Adams is going to be my pick there. He's my wide receiver 8. I have my concerns about him going into this year. I just don't know if I could. He seems like the more sure thing to me than Derrick Henry this year. How about that? Despite both of them having question marks, like this could be the year Derrick Henry falls off the cliff. I'm going to stay safe and double down on 2 potentially top 5 wide receivers this year. Devontae Adams still had a phenomenal year. You look at Jimmy Garoppolo. Cameron, I love the breakdown that you did in the tiered rankings for the top 12 wide receivers and the comparison you did on Derek Carr and Jimmy G in terms of their accuracy. I mean, look, it's not going to be pretty with Jimmy G, but you're also not going to get You're also not going to get Devontae Adams the football in this offense. So, I will go ahead and double down on wide receiver there. Cooper Kupp and Devontae Adams is my start. Amon-Ra St. Brown, Derrick Henry, Nick Chubb off the board afterwards. Tyler, back to you now. Pretty much all of the top wide receivers are off the board at this point. But there's a juicy running back sitting at the top of the board here that I think you would have a hard time not taking right now.
Before you go, Ty, I just want to say I am surprised, Lucas, that you went Devontae Adams over Nick Chubb. I thought for sure Nick Chubb was the slam dunk pick there for you. So you did surprise me there. I'll give you that.
So I made mock draft, and I think I'm slowly developing into the person who's going to trust wide receivers more than I do running backs this year. Mm-hmm. Because the ones who I can say, they stayed healthy or didn't get injured last year. I'm like, what are the chances they get injured though? Jonathan Taylor, we all thought he was invincible. He got injured last year. Like the wide receiver just feels like the more sure and safe thing that in redraft, I think I'm willing to punt on running back a little bit longer and shoot for some of the upside that's in the middle rounds, not even the middle rounds, before the running back dead zone in rounds like 5 to 7 or 8, and just, pick up values there versus, take the risk right away. We'll see that. I mean, Nick Chubb could have been my pick there, but Ty, I'll kick it to you because frankly, I think I would rather take this running back if you do take him than Nick Chubb.
Yeah. The one idea that I do have is going Jalen Hurts here, waiting for Devontae Smith to come back, but knowing that Cam's in front of me and I just said that idea, he's definitely going to take Devontae Smith ahead of me, so I'm not going to do that anymore. And fellas, remind me, did I take Tony Pollard in our last mock? I feel like I did.
I believe you did, yes.
So this time around, I'm going to switch it up. I'm going to go with Josh Jacobs, who's my running back 4. There's nothing has really changed with this offense. It's still going to go through Josh Jacobs. I don't understand why he's going later than it. He's going outside the top 5, and I feel like he deserves to be top 5, but I will take the discount gladly in the second round.
I mean, you talked about how good he was in last week's episode with Hayden Winks, right? He's going as an RB10. What did he go as? He went RB2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, RB8 here. Like that's probably the floor, I feel like, for Josh Jacobs this year. Because you're right, nothing changes. They're going to feed him and Devontae Adams the football. That's probably it. Like it's going to be those two who are featured in this offense. So I don't understand how Josh Jacobs is going after the likes of Nick Chubb. Derrick Henry can make the argument for, but he's such a value at his ADP there. Josh Allen, Breece Hall went off the board next. Cam, you fist pumped a little bit because I think based on Ty's analysis, Tony Pollard fell to you. And I'm going to take a stab and guess that he's your pick here.
Yeah, that one's easy for me. I mean, Tony Pollard, I think for all of us is a top 8 back projected this season. Ty, you got him up at like running back 3, right? We all like
4.
Tony. Luca's got him at 4. I'm the lowest on him, and still, here he's a value for me at the end of the second. He's a guy, for sure has top 3 potential. We saw it last season. He was, I think, running back 7 on the season, 7 or 9, one of the two, and he was sharing with Zeke the entire time. They got to the goal line, Zeke ran the ball in, and yet Tony Pollard was still that effective. He's a guy that I really like. After Tony Pollard, I can just say it because I'm right on the end. Jalen Waddle and Jalen Hurts go, which is fine by me. I was not considering either of them. On the board right now is Mark Andrews, Ramondre Stevenson, T. Higgins, Najee Harris, Chris Olave, Travis Etienne, Devonta Smith. Those are the next, kind of set of players. I don't love taking Mark Andrews quite this early. I think if I was at the end of the third, I would like it a little bit more. I don't think he'd quite fall to me there.
At my pick, he would be great.
Yes, no, exactly. Like if he fell to you, he'd be perfect for your 0 RB. Ramondre, I'm a little bit lower on, and I would think I would like a wide receiver here. So I'm going to take my next highest wide receiver, who is actually Devonta Smith. I have him as my wide receiver 12. I think he will be the target. Oh, what? That is not who I meant to take. Oh, no, wait. Never mind. I saw team 3. That's my bad.
I was going to say, I'm like,
I got
Devonta Smith.
No, I think he will be the target leader in Philly. And I think, it's just going to come down to touchdowns, whether he finishes up wide receiver 15 or top 10 wide receiver this year. But I like Devonta Smith.
Yeah, I mean, Devonta Smith maybe might take a step back with Dallas Goedert back, but I find it hard to believe he still doesn't finish outside of the top 15 wide receivers this year. And you lock one of those in after going 2 likely top 10 running backs in fantasy football this year. I think that's a great start. Ramondre Stevenson did go off the board next, then T. Higgins. Ty has a couple of pass catchers here. I would love to target right now 2 of them that I would love to have a year spot. Are you going to end up tripling down on running back like you did in our last mock draft, or are you going to go with one of these pass catchers?
No, I'm looking between Mark Andrews and Chris Olave. And this is a very interesting pick because with Mark Andrews, you get somewhat of a positional advantage, not as much as a Travis Kelce, but there is no other Mark Andrews when it comes to fantasy tight ends. But then you look at Chris Olave and you look at one of, it's Garrett Wilson, then Chris Olave in terms of these sophomore wide receivers with expectations to take a sophomore leap. So it really comes down to just who I think is going to pay more dividends down the road. And I think it's going to be Mark Andrews. There are some wide receiver values I do like down the board a little bit that I can maybe look next round or the round after that. There's no other Mark Andrews in fantasy, and especially on the board of that pick. So I'll go Andrews in the third.
I like Mark Andrews at that spot, honestly, because I think it's him and Travis Kelce. You could debate TJ Hawkinson with me, but if Rashad Bateman is still dealing with foot injury, and this team is going to up the pace more on offense, I like that for Mark Andrews. You can tell who's on my mind for my next pick because I'm looking at a few different names in my pick. But Mark Andrews I think is a perfectly fine value there. And if your confidence is drafting wide receivers, and there's more options at wide receivers in the coming rounds, then take the tight end. Take the sure thing at tight end and come back to wide receivers later. Yep. So I actually really don't mind that pick there at all for you, Ty. Travis Etienne, Chris Olave, DK Metcalf off the board next. When I saw Travis Etienne go ahead of Chris Olave, I was so hoping Chris Olave would somehow snake his way to me, but he did not. I do not get the luck of the draw twice in this draft with Cooper Kupp and Chris Olave. I don't like this spot. I hate being at this spot.
Yeah, it's gross right now.
This is where the draft starts to go real south at the 9 spot. Because Najee Harris is there. I could take Najee Harris as my running back 1. Joe Burrow, if I want to go quarterback already. Ken Walker, I'll gladly pass on. Lamar Jackson. Yeah, he interests me here. Jahmyr Gibbs also interests me. So I think what I'm going to do is I am going to take my highest ranked running back here. I am going to go Najee Harris, so I at least get one running back before the fall off, and before we hit the dead zone, because my pissed, man. I was really hoping Jahmyr Gibbs would fall back to me there. He was the running back I was hoping would snake back to me because I was going to double up Najee Harris and then just go pure upside with Jahmyr Gibbs. But Sleeper's a brat and decided to snipe me.
That was awesome.
Oh, that's so frustrating because I was ready to transition into the like low floor or like safer floor in Najee Harris, who's an RB7 from week 10 on last year. So then go Jahmyr Gibbs, but I got freaking sniped. I'm gonna go another wide receiver here because I really don't trust Joe Mixon in any capacity to be on the field this year. Maybe he will, but I got my one running back. Joe Mixon is where I think I'm going to start avoiding running backs in most drafts this year because then it just gets messy until about round 6 or 7. I am going to go Keenan Allen here. I mean, he was phenomenal, the wide receiver 3 in fantasy points per game. From correct me on the weeks from last year, but
11 to 18.
11 to 18, he was the wide receiver 3 in fantasy points per game. You get Kellen Moore in there now, top 6 scoring offense in 3 of the past 4 years in Dallas. I mean, you could hear endless praise of Kellen Moore from me, despite him not getting the Cowboys that far into the playoffs. But this Chargers offense, they're going to be healthy again this year. I'll gladly take the risk on Keenan Allen. Cooper Kupp, Devontae Adams, Keenan Allen, Najee Harris. I'm loving that start to my team, if I'm being perfectly honest. I'm just bummed it wasn't Jahmyr Gibbs as my running back too. But I'll deal. DeAndre Hopkins, Calvin Ridley, Joe Mixon off the board next. Ty, back to you. Man, look at all those quarterbacks sitting there. It's a shame Lamar Jackson didn't make it back to you. But there's also a wide receiver name on the board that I don't think you would be too upset with as your wide receiver 1.
Yeah, Amari Cooper. But here's the thing. Joe Burrow is staring me in the face here. And I have to make a decision. At what point is, a quarterback like Joe Burrow a value in terms of where he's going in this draft? Because, we'll have a top 15. I think it's top 15 quarterback video coming later this week where I talk about Joe Burrow. Burrow was on pace for 5,000 yards last year before Jamar Chase got hurt. And if everyone thinks that Cincinnati, if this is going to be Cincinnati's year, right, you got a fully healthy Jamar Chase, offense seems to be on the up and up. I want a piece of it. So as much as I probably should go Amari Cooper, let's experiment a little bit. I'm going to take the value of Joe Burrow here with my 4th pick.
Oh, didn't matter. Amari won.
Yeah, you weren't going to get that gift. There was no way you were going to get that free gift, Cameron, because Amari Cooper went right after Joe Burrow. Damian Pierce afterwards. Cameron, to you now. I think Amari Cooper is the drop-off at wide receiver. I think he really is. Because, DeAndre Hopkins and Calvin Ridley slide in there, but, basically after Amari Cooper, the wide receivers just get extremely less sexy at that point.
Yes, they do.
And the running backs really aren't much better. But you got some real high upside quarterbacks here, and I know there's one quarterback you really love that's still on the board right now. Which direction are you looking to go?
I am not going to go quarterback with this pick, just knowing Team 1 already has picked a quarterback. I'm going to wait to take the one that I'm looking at next with my next pick. So I will take quarterback at this turn. But like you said, wide receivers here feel gross. Terry McLaurin, DJ Moore, Drake London, Christian Watson, right? I'm just not in love with any of those names. Same with the running backs. J.K. Dobbins here, Alexander Madison, Dalvin Cook. The two I'm really between right now with this pick is Miles Sanders and Jerry Jeudy. I kind of want to take Jerry Jeudy just so I know he doesn't fall back to Lucas, just so I know Lucas doesn't get him at all. But I also have Miles Sanders really high in my rankings. It would just completely solidify my running backs. But if I look down the board a little farther, I think I can snag another running back. I actually no, I can't. So I am going to go Miles Sanders here. It's gross. I hate saying it. But he is my running back 14 this year. I believe that he's going to have 3-down work. We've seen him have 55 targets in a season. We've seen him put up 1,200 yards and 12 touchdowns in a season. I'm not saying he puts all that together this year, but I think he's going to get enough work in Carolina. And now the two quarterbacks, Justin Fields, Justin Herbert. I'm going to pick the guy who I think could have 5,000 yards and 40 touchdowns in a season, and that is Justin Herbert. That one, I know it's probably should be a lot closer than it is, but for me, it is Herbert pretty easily.
That's interesting because I my rankings say Justin Fields, but at the same time, you take Justin Herbert there, and I don't bat an eye because Justin Herbert in the Kellen Moore offense, like you said, could be 5,000 for 40 touchdowns this year. If Joe Burrow it can do that, Justin Herbert is probably the next guy in line to do that, if not even ahead of Joe Burrow. But no, I agree with you there with going Justin Herbert, even though my rankings say Justin Fields, who went off the board next, then Christian Watson. Ty, to you now. You don't have a wide receiver yet.
Team 4 is killing you.
Yeah, Team 4 is just killing you on all the wide receivers. Jamar Chase, T. Amari Cooper. I mean, you probably took him on Joe Burrow there, but they had Josh Allen already. Yeah, I take that back. Who are you looking here, Ty? You finally going to draft a wide receiver?
I am. I like really Terry McLaurin. Huh? What was it?
There's one you really like. I know who you're going to take here.
You want me to take Drake London?
That's who I think you're going to take.
I'm not. I'm taking Jerry Jeudy because I'm not letting him get back to you.
You little butt muncher.
No, I think like you look at the wide receivers, at that pick, it was between Terry McLaurin, Drake London, and Jerry Jeudy for me. And I think the player that has the best chance of finishing in the top 15 is Jerry Jeudy out of the three of those. Terry McLaurin finished as a wide receiver 14 last year. I don't think he repeats it. I like Drake London, but I think it is a bit of a stretch to put him inside the top 15 conversation. And I think Jerry Jeudy was the right pick there, and especially because I sniped Lucas.
I love it.
Fine.
Bill and
scramble and figure out what to do here. I know who I'm going to take with my first pick. My first pick is going to be Dallas Goedert. I'm going to go ahead and snag the last of the top tight ends here and not bet that he doesn't fall back to me because Kyle Pitts ended up going on the turn. So I question if Dallas Goedert would have actually made it back to me. But DJ Moore, Dalvin Cook, Chris Godwin, Cam Akers, Deontay Johnson, Kyle Pitts all went after. Here's the thing on Dallas Goedert. Okay, the reason why I go him over Kyle Pitts, I don't trust Arthur Smith one bit at all whatsoever with Bijan Robinson on that team. No, I don't trust him one bit to get Kyle Pitts a football. Despite all the pretty advanced metrics that you give me, you need to give me a quarterback that can get that dude the football. Desmond Ridder might be an upgrade from Marcus Mariota. I'm not buying it for Kyle Pitts, though. Dallas Goedert. You ready for this? There we go. Dallas Goedert last year. In his first 10 weeks when he was healthy. Dallas Goedert. His first 10 weeks when he was healthy. He finished. Why is it showing me? Man, this is really sloppy. It's showing me all the dumb metrics on Dallas Goedert I don't actually want. Dallas Goedert was a top 10 fantasy tight end in 7 of the first 10 weeks. I will gladly take that at that point. I will take him in the better offense than Kyle Pitts. And then now, as it comes back to me, I'm going to go ahead and take my running back 2 here. James Conner is the screaming value to me there. Look, I know this Cardinals team is going to suck. You look at his metrics without Kyler Murray. There wasn't much choice other than to get James Conner involved because they don't have that many playmakers on offense, right? 18.5 fantasy points per game in PPR formats without Kyler Murray. Last year, you add in 3 games without him in 2021, 21.5 fantasy points per game. That is literally burned into the back of my brain with how many times I have taken James Conner this year. So I'm pleased. I'm pleased at this point. I would have liked one of those top, 6-7 quarterbacks there that breaks after Justin Herbert. But at this point, like as much as I like Trevor Lawrence, I think I'd rather just hunt on quarterback until later and just build up some absolutely incredible depth for my team. So Dallas Goedert and James Conner were my next 2 picks, followed up by Mike Williams, DeAndre Swift, Darren Waller by sleeper. Tyler, back to you now. You finally took a wide receiver. Jerry Jeudy's on your team. Some of these wide receivers actually aren't that bad in this range. Which is where I'm guessing you're going to go with your next pick, considering your 2-headed monster at running back being Austin Eckler and Josh Jacobs.
Yeah, you're exactly right. I like Brandon Ayuk. Christian Kirk is a little bit ways down the board. I like him. I like Tyler Lockett, even with JSN in town. Michael Pittman, meh. He's just kind of a meh pick to me this year. Honestly, that's the only way I can describe it.
I need
but
that.
The one. I'm Lucas. I know why you went James Conner because you already had 3 wide receivers. But I was kind of surprised that you didn't take this guy. I'm going to take Hollywood Brown again, Arizona has to throw the ball to somebody. And I'm going to bet on Hollywood Brown over some other wide receivers that are on the Arizona Cardinals.
Yeah, I would agree. I would agree because the talent there isn't all that great. It's not all that great. Can we leave our analysis at that? I mean, he was phenomenal without D-Hop, and I get you're not going to have Kyler. Somebody's got to catch the football on that team. Yeah. Somebody has to. And the offense might not be dynamic, but I'll tell you what, if you can get Marquise Brown as the wide receiver 30, yeah, you know what? I'm going to bet that he's better than the wide receiver 30 with how many times you're going to have to throw the freaking football this year.
Yep.
Nothing more to be said there. And yeah, like you said, the discrepancy between Marquise Brown and every other wide receiver on that team, it's pretty big. It's pretty big. So yeah. I know you're trying to tee me up here, but I'm going to save it. I'm going to save it.
All right. Whew.
Michael Pittman, Brandon Ayuk on the board. The people will get a taste of that this episode. Michael Pittman, Brandon Ayuk off the board next. Cameron, back to you. That kind of sucks because, again, now you look at these other wide receivers. There's some decent names there. Mm-hmm. Who are you going to go with here? Who are you going to go with? Because yeah. I could see you reaching down on any of these wide receivers, really.
This one's easy for me. It's Christian Kirk. Ty said the name earlier. I was worried that he was going to take him. Christian Kirk's the highest wide receiver for me left between, Marquise Brown, Michael Pittman, Brandon Ayuk, Christian Kirk. I got him all the way up at wide receiver 20. He's a guy that I think is going to have another really decent season. Ty brought it up. I don't remember if it was last episode or 2 episodes ago of, Calvin Ridley played 560 some snaps and like 490 of them were on the outside, right? He only played like 50 snaps in the slot. Christian Kirk last year, 518 snaps, 494 of them in the slot, right? This dude does not leave the slot and he plays really well. He also is not a dink and dump slot. He averaged 13 yards per catch. So he's a really, really solid player who is going to perform again this year. Honestly, if I didn't have Justin Herbert, I would be going Trevor Lawrence here. But I do think I want to add another wide receiver. And so my options, Mike Evans, George Pickens, JSN, Treylon Burks, Jordan Addison. And I'm going to be honest, I kind of like all of them for different reasons. But the guy I do have the highest right now in my rankings is the rookie. And I want to get exciting. So I'm going to take Jordan Addison here. I think he's going to get a lot of targets. And Lucas's reaction makes it so much better, even if he's bad. Just the fact that I could do that to Lucas again this draft made me so happy.
You suck. Like, of all players that could have made it back to me, I was hoping Jordan Addison would be one of them. And now he's not. The 9 spot sucks. Don't get the 9 spot this year. Mike Evans, Rachaad White off the board next. Tyler, back to you. I already know you're going to take me on one of my next 2 picks, probably. I already know. Yeah. I don't have to guess. I already know you're going to.
I am looking right at Jahan Dotson, and I'm saying Lucas is praying that Mr. Dotson falls back to him. I would if I want to be goofy, but I'm actually going to be serious here. I'm going to take George Pickens here. I've got George Pickens 6 spots ahead of Jahan Dotson in my wide receiver rankings. I don't think you can go wrong with either of those guys at that pick. But I like I said, I've got Pickens higher in my wide receiver rankings. I feel more comfortable with Pickens and Dotson.
Interesting, because to me, that was a smash Jahan Dotson pick right there. If I had your team, that was a smash Jahan Dotson pick, but I'm not you. We have our preferences.
You should just go Treylon Burks here.
Trevor Lawrence, Alvin Kamara, Jackson Smith, and Jigba did go off the board next. So Jahan Dotson did make his way back to me. But what if I told you there's actually 2 players I'm considering right now at this point? I'll let you know who they are right after we take a quick break. Today's podcast episode is brought to you by our friends over at Underdog Fantasy. Now, we love Underdog. It is the easiest place to play best ball formats, and they even have their own form of player props called Pick'em. You can make up to 20 times your money on a single night by correlating props together. 2 picks will triple your money, 3 will 6 times it, 4 will 10 times it, and 5 plays that all hit will multiply your entry by 20. You can even place insurance on your picks too, so if only 4 of your 5 props hit, you still get 10 times your entry. And if you use our code FELLAS when signing up, Underdog is going to double your first deposit up to $100. Alrighty, we are back.
I think I was off.
Yeah, I was.
You both
off too.
probably
Oh
were.
well.
I don't watch it. I look into the camera when I talk. Let's bring it back. Before we went into the break, I told you Tyler was just giving me Jahan Dotson, but there's actually 2 players I'm considering here. And would you believe me if I told you I'm not going to take Jahan Dotson here?
You are such a liar.
I'm not. I'm David Montgomery is still on the board.
Is he even the best kept secret?
He, after I told you that he's the best kept secret, he might actually not be. I am going to take David Montgomery here though, because I am recognizing this is me hedging, honestly, like hedging my bets against James Conner. As much as I love James Conner, I'm going to hedge my bets against a bad Arizona Cardinals offense that James Conner might not find the end zone as much this year, that James Conner isn't the most healthy running back we've ever seen on the NFL football field. And if I waited, and if I only have Najee Harris, who I'm already like kind of meh on, and I love the wide receivers I have, and Cooper Kupp, Devontae Adams, and Keenan Allen, and I can find more wide receiver value later, I'm going to go ahead and take David Montgomery, who I think probably could play similar Jamal Williams role, but if you go listen to Hayden break down David Montgomery on our podcast last week, he does such a great job explaining like the floor for David Montgomery is probably his ADP. It can probably only go up because he's going to be the between the tackles guy, the goal line guy, and if anything happens to Jahmyr Gibbs, David Montgomery's the dude.
Yep.
Vice versa goes for Jahmyr Gibbs, but I like to think David Montgomery is probably going to be the more durable back. We've seen him do it before. So I absolutely love David Montgomery here as my running back 3. Isaiah Pacheco, Kadarius Toney, Jahan Dotson, son of a gun. James Cook and Dak Prescott went off the board next. I knew he wasn't going to make it back to me. That's super unfortunate because now at this point I'm kind of screwed. I don't know who I'm going to go with for my wide receiver 3 or wide receiver 4. Excuse me. I think and Dak Prescott just went too, and I really like Dak Prescott. Can I get a do-over?
No, never. We don't do do-overs.
You made the mistake of passing at Dotson.
I did make the mistake. I don't regret it though. I don't regret it. This is the downside of the 9 spot is like you kind of have to call your shots on guys extremely early. At this point, I don't know how much longer I can really wait on a quarterback. I could go Deshaun Watson. I'm not super thrilled with him though. I'm going to go Brandon Cooks. That's not a sexy pick at all, but I think he's going to see a boost in production this year now that he's in Dallas. He's a wide receiver 2 there. No more Dalton Schultz in that offense. I think he's pretty clearly the wide receiver 2 there. I don't love that pick, but I need the depth at wide receiver. And if anything were to happen to Kupp coming off of an injury, Devontae Adams has been pretty consistent in terms of his health. If anything happens to Keenan Allen, I'll just take a guy who I can throw in there in a good offense to slot in as my wide receiver 3. So yeah, I go Brandon Cooks, though I would have loved Jahan Dotson there instead. Antonio Gibson, Pat Freiermuth, Quentin Johnston off the board then. Ty, back to you. You've gone 3 wide receivers now. Again, the wide receivers are just ugly at this point. There's actually running back here. I think you're probably a pretty happy fell to you if I had to guess who you're going to take.
Yeah, well, if you're talking about AJ Dillon, right? You're talking about AJ Dillon?
Yes, correct. AJ Dillon, yeah.
I recently went through my running backs this past weekend on our draft guide. Again, fellasdraftguide.com, shameless plug. And I went through my running backs. AJ Dillon on my running back 26. So there's still value here. But I look at my wide receivers and I'm like, I need to go one more here to feel somewhat okay with the room that I have. Like I look, Jerry Jeudy, Marquise Brown, George Pickens are going to be good players, but they're not necessarily players that I want to bank on being super consistent wide receiver 1 or wide receiver 2 producers for me. So I just need to start taking as many shots as I can on wide receivers. I look at a guy like Michael Thomas, who's my wide receiver 36, and I say, well, that's fascinating. In any other situation, I would, but there's risk with Michael Thomas, and I need to kind of stay away from risk because I've taken risks already with this draft. So I'm going to go down the board a bit. I'm going to go take the Ravens wide receiver 1. It's Zay Flowers. Okay, Zay Flowers wide receiver 1 in my rankings. Because I also went through the Ravens wide receivers and I realized, wow, I'm kind of a stooge for having Odell as the wide receiver 1 in that offense. Like Zay Flowers, another upside kind of pick, with in the same conversation of upside with George Pickens and stuff. But again, wide receiver 1 on a really, really good team in an offense that's really going to improve going into next year. I like the value of Zay Flowers there.
Yeah, I'm starting to get concerned with the Rashad Bateman foot injury stuff. That's starting to scare me a little bit. And I don't trust Odell, despite a massive contract, to walk in and just be like, hey, you know what? I've taken a year and a half off of football. I can play again. Like, I just don't buy that. And not a year and a half. It's only been about like a full year of NFL action, but a year and a half in real time. So I don't honestly, I don't hate that because I think Zay Flowers probably will by default end up being the wide receiver 1 in that offense behind Mark Andrews, of course, who you already have. But Evan Ingram went off the board next. Zach Charbonnet. Cameron, to you now. We're kind of getting to the nasty part of the draft here. Well, what options are you even looking at or intrigued by at this point?
So at this point, I've decided there's no tight ends that I really like. So I'm going to punt on tight end, and I will take one probably with my last pick. Just a guy, I'll be looking for a guy who can show me either in week 1 he's involved or he's not involved. So I'm probably just going to keep bolstering up running back and wide receiver depth, tie pass on him, but I will take him here, and that is AJ Dillon. I just think, he's been pretty consistently, running back 25 or so. He's a guy you can plug in. I don't think he's ever going to kill you in a week, right? I think he's a guy that if you need 8 points for sure, he'll give you 8 points, which obviously, hopefully you don't need that a lot. But I do think, we were talking about with David Montgomery. If anything happens to Aaron Jones, they're going to have to rely on AJ Dillon. I don't think it'll be in the same way, right? If it's AJ Dillon versus David Montgomery without their other back, David Montgomery's obviously the better back in that situation just because he is on a better offense. But I do think, AJ Dillon has that upside. The next, because I have 4 running backs now, 3 wide receivers, I'd like to add a wide receiver here. I actually like Rashad Bateman. He is still my wide receiver 1 in Baltimore, despite you two being pessimistic. The other guy I'm considering is actually Michael Thomas of here. I think we're late enough where if Michael Thomas can return to 80% of who Michael Thomas was, that's not too bad of a wide receiver to be taken this late. So obviously that's still a big if, right? We haven't really seen him play in 2 years, but I'm going to take that chance on Mike Thomas here.
At this point, I think I'm just willing to take shots on Michael Thomas with how late he's going. Yep. I don't take him with a lot of confidence, but if he can be my wide receiver 4 on teams where he becomes droppable at some point, I don't hate his value at all this year. Rashad Penny and Brian Robinson went off the board next. Tyler, back to you now. You've gone 4 wide receivers. The everything starts to open up a little bit because you have your elite tight end, you have your elite quarterback, you have 2 elite running backs, but the running back depth here is really starting to dwindle. There might be 2 or 3 guys left who give you some sense of upside behind Jacobs and Eckler, but who are you looking to take here? Build out running back depth or just start taking BPA, best player available?
I'm going for a mix of both here, and that's just kind of it's a personal take that I have. I'm building out running back depth, but I'm also going best player is subjective because there's 3 quarterbacks right on the board, but right. I'm gonna go Samaje Perine. I have no idea what Javonte.
For those listening on Spotify, Lucas has been sniped again. Not once, but twice since Tyler picked his Samaje Perine. Tyler,
I'm sorry to interrupt. This is a tragedy. This episode is not a comedy. It is a tragedy. I'm going to retrieve my hat. Tyler, go ahead and talk.
Bill Shakespeare wrote this one.
No, I'll keep this one short and sweet because we can put the spotlight back on Lucas then. Who knows what kind of version of Javonte Williams we get coming back from his injury. And what we saw from Samaje Perine last year, maybe it wasn't the best running back on planet Earth, but it was a pretty darn efficient one who had touchdown production. I trust Sean Payton. I know I already have Jerry Jeudy, so maybe I'm going for a stack on Denver offense here, but I'm looking for running back depth, and the best running back on the board at that point was Samaje Perine, in my opinion.
No, Samaje Perine was the right pick there. I'm not going to be surprised when he outscores Javonte Williams this year, who's going on Underdog like six running backs ahead of him. In this draft, I can't recall where Javonte went off. Oh, he went at the 701. Yeah, and you're getting Samaje at the 905. Like that's great value there. I will gladly take that on Samaje Perine. I wanted quarterback with my next pick. I thought I could wait another round. I really did. I didn't think Deshaun Watson would make it that far, but I thought Tua could. Based on the teams in front of me, I thought Tua could at least make it back to me because Tua was on pace to be a 5,000-yard passer last year. I would have gladly taken that in the 9th round. I don't think Tua's like league winning upside or anything, but like, yeah, a guy in that efficient of an offense, I will gladly take him on my team. But alas, he got sniped. I got sniped. Now I'm left looking at the likes of Anthony Richardson, Kirk Cousins, Aaron Rodgers. Daniel Jones is down there 1.5 miles. And we only have 4 rounds left. And I ideally would like one more running back, another wide receiver, and then I'd go 2 quarterbacks ideally. So here's what I'm going to do. Because I've waited so long, I'm going to swing for the fences and go Anthony Richardson as my quarterback 1. That being said, I kind of tip my hat on what my next strategy is going to be, is that I'm going to, oh my gosh, you've got to be freaking kidding me. Oh my gosh, this isn't fun.
And there's another one.
This isn't fun. I'm not having fun. Because Daniel Jones was down there like 0.5 mile. I thought I could wait at least one more round. I'm going to be stuck with Anthony Richardson. This is just not fun at all. I'm having
Aaron Rodgers.
No, I'm having a terrible time. I'm having a terrible time. I'm not having fun. I might walk out of this draft with Anthony Richardson as my only quarterback. I'm not going to lie. At this point, I'm going to wait on quarterback because I'm not interested in the likes of Aaron Rodgers or Geno Smith as my quarterback too, and I can probably wait and get a guy with higher upside later in the draft. So I'm maybe, yeah. At this point, it's a maybe. At this point, everything's a maybe. I am going to take a running back though. I'm going to take a more of an upside running back. I'm going to go ahead and take Devon Achane just because I like the fit in the Miami system. Khalil Herbert was the other option I was looking at there, but 3-headed monster, I don't think it's a guarantee he walks out of the season with the starting job. I think Devon Achane is more likely to overtake the starting job by the end of the season in Miami than Khalil Herbert is to maintain the starting job. So that's how I'm looking at it. I'm playing the long game there with the likes of Najee, James Conner, David Montgomery as my first 3 running backs. Let's sit and be patient on a guy like Devon Achane throughout the season. Aaron Rodgers went off the board next. Jacoby Myers, Khalil Herbert then. Tyler, to you now as we're getting into the late rounds here. What are you thinking?
I'm going to go one more wide receiver here. And, Jameson Williams is right here. Elijah Moore, Odell. I'm not going Odell because I already have Zay Flowers. I kind of like the value of Allen Lazard as the number 2 in the Jets offense. But I'm going to go a little bit lower on the board. I'm going to go Adam Thielen. I'm going to grab the wide receiver 1 for the Carolina Panthers. And I know I think we are finished seeing, the high end production weeks of Adam Thielen. But there's still a floor in being the wide receiver 1 in that offense. So to have him as my wide receiver 5, I am finally content with my wide receivers.
Again, if Adam Thielen, the wide receiver 1 this late in a draft, it might not be the best offense in the world, but if you can get probably the lead target getter in an offense this late, that seems like a safe floor at this point to round out your team. Jameson Williams, Elijah Moore, we're off the board next. Cameron, to you now. Again, we're getting into these later rounds here. Maybe it's not so much about floor, maybe more about upside, but what are some names you're looking at?
I actually have one name that I really like here, and that's Damian Harris. I think that he does have a chance. I think I might have actually taken him in our last mock. He does have a chance, or one of us did, because I remember talking about him, that he does have a chance to be the lead rusher, in attempts and in touchdowns this season. Obviously, not a super high receiving floor, especially with James Cook and the rushing upside of Josh Allen. But he is going to be my pick there, giving me 5 running backs now. Like I said, I'm just completely punting the tight end position. There's nobody, Chig is right here, Dalton Kincaid's here, and I think they're good options. But I don't think they're any better than the options I can get in the last round.
You take that back.
Yeah. Hello. What?
And so what I'm going to do here
is take Chikakonkwo,
Is
like
you're
a normal
gonna
sane
backpedal
person.
and take Chikakonkwo.
No, I'm going to take an upside pick here.
Chikakonkwo.
On a guy that we were just bashing, me and Ty were, and I have really come around in the last 2 weeks.
Oh, no.
And he is Mr. Rondale Moore.
Oh, no, you can't do that because he was supposed to make it back to me.
So,
he was supposed to make it back to me.
Lucas, you are the only one that could blame yourself. I was so out on Rondale. And then you spoke the truth of Rondale to me, and I have moved Rondale Moore up 25 spots in my rankings since the last time we had a mock. So Rondale Moore will be my pick there. And I'm going to be honest, I couldn't be happier.
I play this drop with such sadness.
You wanted Rondale?
Yes,
I wanted Rondale. I wanted him very badly.
The people are still going to like your team better somehow. You're going to be
so
upset.
The people are legit going to say, "What's wrong with Lucas's team?" And I'm going to say, "I agree," because I hate this team. Everybody I wanted is oh my god. Ty, your pick. Chikakonkwo and Dalton Kincaid went next. I have nothing left to contribute to this episode. I hope you know that.
This episode has officially gone off the rails. I'm gonna get my last running back of the draft. I'm gonna go Elijah Mitchell. I know Christian McCaffrey is there, but we have said it multiple times, and when I say we, I mean Lucas. It was that backfield split carries when both CMC and Elijah Mitchell were healthy. So yes, there's injury risk with Elijah Mitchell, but who knows? Maybe Elijah Mitchell can make something happen this year.
Yeah, he'll have a nose for the end zone if Christian McCaffrey isn't scoring touchdowns, and Elijah Mitchell could be the goal line back too. I mean, there's a real chance he steals plenty of touchdowns from McCaffrey this year. So I really don't hate that pick this late in the draft for a flyer on a team that needs running back upside. All right, here's what I'm going to do. You ready for this? I am fully expectant Kyler Murray is going to make his way back to me. I am fully expecting of that because he's going to be the second quarterback I take. Now that I've put that into the universe, Sleeper can no longer snipe me because I didn't mention any other quarterback names before. That's my superstition here. So I'm going to go ahead and take I'm going to take a flyer on a wide receiver who I think is actually going to be the number 1 in his offense this year. How about a little bit of Nico Collins action here?
Nice.
I absolutely love Nico Collins at his current value as I'm like sweating out whether Kyler Murray makes it back to me or not. If I need to have another freak out session. Kyler Murray did make his way back to me. He'll be my pick here in the final round. But we're swinging upside here. Like Tyler Boyd, okay. Like he's a floor guy, though. I don't want floor guys at this point in the draft. Darnell Mooney, a little skeptical. He could be a big play guy, but with DJ Moore there, I'm not entirely sure. Jonathan Mingo, a lot of hype around him. But again, you have Adam Thielen, you have DJ Chark there. Hayden Hurst signed a nice little deal. Like, I don't know if I want to trust Jonathan Mingo. I'm not interested in Rasheed Rice or Sky Moore. Zay Jones, more of a floor guy. So again, like Nico Collins could be the wide receiver 1 there. He was seeing quite a few targets last year without Brandon Cooks in this Texans offense from weeks 10 to 13. Saw a total of 36 targets, 10, 7, 9, 9, all without Brandon Cooks in those games. 15 fantasy points per game, 10 fantasy points per game, 12 fantasy points per game. Nothing spectacular, but he was getting the volume. And I'll take a flyer on Nico Collins there at the end of the draft. And again, I told everyone I was taking Kyler Murray. I don't care how many games he's out. I'll live with Anthony Richardson until Kyler Murray gets back. That's what I'll leave it at. Ezekiel Elliott, Tyler Higbee, Kendre Miller off the board. Ty, with your final pick in the draft, who are you going to take?
I'm feeling dangerous. I'm going Russ. Probably don't need to have a second quarterback.
Such a bad pun. I appreciate it, but I was so bad.
I know it was. It came to my mind and I said, I got to say it. And I shouldn't have. But having Jerry Jeudy, having Russ on my team with Jerry Jeudy is just a nice value at that point.
Cameron with their last pick in the draft, Devin Singletary, Roschon Johnson. You got to take a tight end here.
And there's only been one player who's been worthy of my final pick for 4 years in a row. And it's just such an easy pick every time. Completing the deadly Chargers stack that everybody wants, that everybody craves. It is Mr. Gerald Everett. As Pete Carroll says, the fanciest tight end he has ever coached. This man is worthy of your last pick.
And you want to know what Gerald Everett did the year that Pete Carroll called him the fanciest tight end he's ever coached? He didn't do jack squat.
Career high in targets.
Was he really?
Yep. He had like 8 yards. He had like 8 yards per catch, but he did have a career high in targets.
Wait, what was that? 2021?
Yeah,
yes.
That was 21.
So he bested his career high by 1 target.
Career high in targets.
Career high is a career high. Let's recap the teams before this episode goes off the rails any further. Before so I can mostly stop looking at my own team. Cameron from the 102, your team was
Christian McCaffrey, Tony Pollard, Devonta Smith, Miles Sanders, Justin Herbert at quarterback, Christian Kirk, rookie Jordan Addison, AJ Dillon, Michael Thomas, Damian Harris, the great Rondale Moore, and the best last pick ever, Gerald Everett.
Ty, your team from the 105.
Started off with Austin Eckler, then went Josh Jacobs, decided to punt on wide receiver, went Mark Andrews and Joe Burrow, then started my wide receiver run with Jerry Jeudy, Marquise Hollywood Brown, George Pickens, Zay Flowers in a row, then went Samaje Perine, Adam Thielen, Elijah Mitchell, and Russell Wilson to finish it up.
And my atrocious team from the 109 that I never want to look at again in my entire lifetime. Cooper Kupp, Devontae Adams, Najee Harris, Keenan Allen, Dallas Goedert, James Conner, David Montgomery, Brandon Cooks, Anthony Richardson, Devon Achane, Nico Collins, Kyler Murray. Look, I don't mind the first 4 rounds of my draft. I really don't. I don't love anybody afterwards. I just don't. But that's probably because I just got sniped like 7 times in this draft. So if you enjoyed that, if you enjoyed watching me suffer and watching the other two thrive, make sure you subscribe to the Fantasy Football Fellas YouTube channel. Turn on those notifications so you know when new episodes are up. If you're listening to this podcast on Apple, Spotify, Google Podcasts, wherever you get your podcast from, make sure you subscribe. Again, turn on those notifications. And if you wouldn't mind leaving us a nice little review, we would greatly appreciate it. That helps us out tremendously. Get boosted up in the suggested podcast as well, so others can listen in and enjoy my suffering as well. Anything we want to add before we head out? Fantasy Football Fellas Draft Guide for 2023, fellasdraftguide.com. You can get that there. Or if you want it for free, promo code Fellas and Underdog Fantasy, join one of their contests. We will make sure that draft guide gets to you. We will send that to your email that you signed up with. Again, 100% free with the promo code Fellas and Underdog Fantasy. Anything I missed? Anything we want to add before we wrap up?
I think that was the most I'd laughed in an episode before, so pretty good one.
They laugh at my pain. Thanks for tuning into another episode of the Fantasy Football Fellas podcast. We will see you next week. Reminder, we are down to 1 episode a week. We'll be back for 4th of July episode. If not, we will let you know. But we'll plan on being back next week, right after the 4th of July on July 5th. And we will see you all then. Deuces.
Deuces.